The MP44 was very much a sort of committee car, which was primarily conceived by Steve Nichols, Alan Jenkins, and supplemented by some of Gordon Murray's thinking. But I don't think anyone could claim to be the exclusive designer of that car.
The drivers, they'd think, it's my car, you know, I drive it. And Ron would think, it's my car, I own it, you know, and the designers think, it's my car, I designed it. And the mechanics think, it's my car, I screwed it together, you know.
Ron Dennis was the very first of the team owners, team managers to decide or to see the importance of a good designer.
My attitude towards things is always trying to just make the best possible car. Use the brain power available, use the rules, use all your resources and components to just make the best possible car. And so the starting point really was to talk to the drivers. They were our sensors on the car to really know what was happening and to really know what was needed. So I talked to the drivers and asked them, what do you need to go faster? What's slowing you down? And they came up with several factors. I outlined maybe 7 factors that they had mentioned and tried to address each one of those factors to make things a little better. For example, they thought the car rolled a little bit too much, so we raised the roll center slightly to reduce the roll. They didn't think the front felt completely connected to the rear, and some of the settings would sort of get lost on their way from the front to the rear. And so we made the monocoque much more stiff, which helped that problem.
I had just come from Brabham, where I could see the benefit of lowering the frontal area and the driver at about a 40 degree, I think it was, back angle, or 35 degrees, I think maybe even. In the wind tunnel, I think it was 7% more efficient, which is unheard of, even at those days, on lift-over drag. And I could see it was a massive advantage. I sat down with Steve and Neil and put the drawings on the table and just said, that's where we're going, basically. It took some getting used to, because your head was cranked up. Your body was down and your head was cranked up. Prost didn't like it. He asked to be sat up. So we built him a foam wedge and we sat him up. And then he was 200 revs slower than Ayrton in the straight because his helmet was blocking the airbox. So he lay down again.
I had also a big problem with the comfort in the car, a lot of air coming in the cockpit, a lot of problems with my seat, a lot of problems with the pedals. And I tried to make a big effort, so I spent a lot of time with the mechanics, quite late in the evening for the last 3 days. And at the end, today, the car was, I would say, 90% the way I like, and it was much, much quicker, much better.
So the net result of that, as it turned out, was a car that was just very, very good in every department. It just had no vices, really. You know, it wasn't like it was a 9 out of 10 in 8 categories and then only 2 out of 10 in 1 category. It was 9, 9.5, something like that in every category. So the big secret of the MP44 was that there wasn't any secret. It was just very good in every respect.
Anything that gave somebody an advantage, Ayrton never complained.
I remember him saying to me that he'd been working out in Brazil, and I said to him, "Yeah, that's nice, but maybe you could stop now because you're getting a little too big for the car." Inevitably, by today's standards, the car looks quite simple, but in period, it was you know, right up to date. I wanted everything to be technically correct, but I kind of wanted it to look nice as well. We tried to make it flow, so to speak. Like if you look at the nose of the car, there's sort of 2 little shapes, and the top blister or bubble goes back into the windscreen, and then on purpose flows back into the headrest behind the driver. You know, that line flows through. And I mean, above all, you want the car to be quick. No compromise there, but if it's going to look simple and clean and elegant, I quite like understated elegance, I suppose. Total technical staff at McLaren was 17 people, and we had to do a hell of a lot of work there. I remember one of the great guys working on the design team, Huey Moran, he said he was driving past the factory one night at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm my light was still on. So, you know, it was a very intense period, but ultimately very rewarding.
At one point, I remember the head of production came and said, "We're not going to make the Imola test." And I said, "Why?" And I said, "What about this? What about that?" "No, no, no, we can't." And I put on a white coat. I went down to the build shop and I said, I will participate in building it. Within 5 hours, they were saying, "Go back to your office, you know, we've got the message." And it was a very interesting day that went down in the history of McLaren, you know, that I sort of said, right, you think, you know, if you don't think the car's going to get there, I do, and this is what we have to do.
He did a very good job of selling the car to Honda.
This is really the result of many, many meetings. Obviously a more intense set of meetings over the last few months, and we're very, very happy to be in this partnership because we feel that their views and their strategy is very consistent with our own, which is to go to every race with the intention of winning it.
The team went into a different dimension, and especially with Honda and with Ayrton, it was a different attitude of inside the team.
I think it's great potential in there with the new combination, especially. The team has great achievements in the past and has everything even to be better in the future. Therefore, I feel very confident about.
Honda are very strong today. I think they're going to be strong not only next year, but all the years that they remain in Formula One. And obviously, we're going to have to do a very good job for them with the car, as we hope they'll do with the engine for us.
I remember arriving late at night in the hotel in Imola, and there was some high-level official from Honda there, and he said to me in the lobby, "So tomorrow we find out about your wonder car." And I thought, what's wrong? What's he been selling here? You know, so he'd been giving them a big sales pitch, I guess, to get Honda and to get Senna on board.
Of course, we arrived late, and all of the teams pretty much, and certainly Ferrari, had been testing 2 days, and therefore was set a lap time.
Inevitably, I was nervous. The car had been done by a limited number of people in a limited amount of time, starting really in August when we signed the contract with Honda, and now it was ready to run early in 1988.
Prost drove the car first, and on his first flying lap, he was half a second off the fastest time that Ferrari had set over the 2 days. On the second flying lap, he'd equalled it.
I said, that's a winning car. That's a winning car, for sure. I knew Imola very well. I knew how it was, no problem. I was very happy.
In the afternoon, we put Senna in the car. He went faster still. He did his first run, 5 laps or so, came in, and he just sat there in the car, stunned, really. Didn't say anything for maybe 30 seconds, seemed like 5 minutes. And then he said, "This car is going to be blankety-blank quick."
By the end of the test, we were, I don't know, 1.5 seconds quicker than anybody else.
Prost was saying to her, "Look, we got to keep a lid on this, you know, we don't want to let everybody know how good the car is," but the cat was out of the bag, so to speak. It was fantastic, really. I mean, you've got the legendary Senna in this car, and he reckons it's brilliant. You've got Prost saying, "We're going to win the World Championship with this car." It was just the most amazing thing.
So, of course, we get to the first Grand Prix. Most teams, either by necessity or belief, decided to go for normally aspirated cars, whereas Ferrari and ourselves stayed with turbocharged cars. To try and create equivalence, we were restricted on fuel tank capacity, and we win the race.
The Brazilian Grand Prix, the first Grand Prix of 1988, has been won by the brilliant Alain Prost in the brand new McLaren MP4/4.
And immediately we are protested. In fact, we were protested every single race. to tune accurately the fuel tank capacity, we had nylon balls to make absolutely sure that the tank capacity was correct. So it became quite ritualistic at the end of Grand Prix. Charlie would come and said, I've got to count your balls. And we would systematically drain the car down, meticulously count out the balls, look around inside the fuel tank, put the same number of balls in, fill it up, and establish that the car was legal. And this happened right through the season.
McLaren and Ron was the first to insist that there is no deal between the drivers. They are ready, willing, able to race. They both have 2 drops of water. The cars were absolutely identical.
To win against Ayrton, it's quite difficult because you have to make a good start, you have to push hard, you have to stay concentrated, you have to push until the end because you never give up, and that's part of the job, but it's quite difficult. And racing like this every Sunday, it's going to be very tiring.
For Ayrton, Alain was the one that he wanted to beat him. When we started driving and testing with him, he was not interested in Piquet or Mansell, just Prost. What rear wing Prost have? What's the angle of this? What is the pressure he used on the tire? Everything that Alain was doing, he wanted to do it.
They weren't radically different in their setups. Perhaps quite different in their driving technique, but their setups weren't that far off. And if they didn't get close to the same setup, they were nervous about that, and they wondered why. You know, they'd be more comfortable if they were approaching the same setup, and they'd then know that the other one didn't have some significant advantage over them.
It's been good for both of us this year, and the car has been good. He has more points, I don't have, but still a lot of race to come.
I think he doesn't need to learn anything, especially on being quick in qualifying.
As long as we are in front, we don't really bother about the others.
And so the people went to see a race knowing that McLaren was going to win, but they didn't know who was going to win, and they were going to be able to watch the best 2 drivers of the world battling each other on the equally identical cars.
When we got to Monza, 2 things happened.
Alain Prost sadly retiring from the Italian Grand Prix. Spin! Senna! Ayrton Senna spins! What a fantastic situation!
And that's all over for Ayrton Senna.
His impatience, he could not wait. You know, he gets behind somebody like with Schlesser. He was just about to double him. Schlesser, when you saw him in the mirror, he kind of made a mistake. He braked too late, he got in the chicane, he spun, and he went out and collected Senna on the back. He couldn't pass him there. He should have waited in the straight, he passed it again. But he couldn't. As soon as he find people, he passed them all the time.
We lost that race, and of course at the time, we didn't realise that we were going to win all the subsequent races, and that was the only one we wouldn't win.
When he did make a mistake, he punished himself so much that not even Ron could tell him off.
Ayrton Senna stalled and virtually stopped.
We didn't have a good start, and he's sort of buried. And then, you know, one by one, picking them off and coming back through the field and winning that championship.
Trying to recover the lost ground, but I didn't think I could make up the whole lost ground to catch Alain.
I was 12 seconds ahead of Ayrton, and then I lost almost everything in 2 laps. So Ayrton in this condition is a little bit quicker, and that's it. I mean, this you have to be world champion, to win this race and to be world champion.
I'd like to thank McLaren Honda for giving me this year, for the first time in my career, a real opportunity to win a championship. It's been great.
I was very fortunate to have been allowed to design that car. And then the following year to be able to be Senna's race engineer and engineer him to his first world championship. So you design the car, and then you go race the car, and you develop the car, and you win the world championship with a legend like Senna, you know, I don't know. For a race car designer, I don't think it can get any better than that.
Yeah, I often think great racing cars are inspiration of an individual and the group of people which are around them. and the drivers. And the MP4 was an era of McLaren where they had some great people there, great structure. Ron was incredibly dynamic and motivated, brilliant drivers. And they managed to make all that chemistry work, and the cars that came out of McLaren in the main in that era were exceptional.
The MP44 went on to win 15 out of 16 races, 15 out of 16 pole positions, 10 1-2s through the season. So the success of the car was phenomenal.
So I look back on it, I've enjoyed every minute, and I really, of course, enjoyed the period of domination that the MP44 gave us.